Wake up, check messages, make coffee. Does that sound like your morning ritual? Are you that person for whom life can't begin without that first cup of tea or coffee in your tummy? Well, to be honest, I am. And turns out this pattern is so prevalent, there's even a word for it: procrastinating, short for postponing everything until after that first morning cuppa. And it'd all be fine if it didn't feel like an addiction. I'm sure you've heard it too, people calling coffee a drug. And I'm sure you have friends who are trying to quit tea and coffee. So, what is it? Is caffeine a curse or a blessing? How does caffeine work its magic? Is it a great natural productivity hack or an addictive psychoactive drug? And is it like a drug or is it something that you can manage and use to your advantage? I'll decode the science, explain the mechanics, and leave you with tips to use your caffeine to your advantage in today's video of the Whole Truth Academy. Before I begin though, please do hit that subscribe button and follow our channel. We're a small food startup and we spend all our marketing budgets in making this content and keeping it free. And it's your love that keeps us going. Okay, back to caffeine. Firstly, caffeine is a chemical found in coffee, tea, colas, chocolates, energy drinks, and even cocoa. Unfortunately, because it sounds like coffee and because coffee has a high concentration of it, people use coffee and caffeine interchangeably. But know that even green tea and hot chocolate have caffeine, just in different quantities. More on this later. First, let's understand how does caffeine work. But how does caffeine work its magic? Why do we feel all energetic and oh, I'll go conquer the world after a morning cup of joe? Well, to understand why we feel energetic, we need to understand why we feel tired. And for that, we need to meet adenosine. Our body makes a substance called adenosine, which is a central nervous system neuromodulator. Okay, in simple words, it's a chemical that binds itself to certain receptors in the brain and slows down brain activity, making us sleepy. You can think of adenosine as our body's mechanism to signal tiredness to the brain. Now, as the day goes by, our body creates more and more adenosine. So, basically, the longer we are awake, the more adenosine our body makes, the more the brain gets this "I am tired" signal from the body, and the sleepier we get. Now, here's the fun part. Turns out the chemical structure of caffeine is very similar to that of adenosine. Hence, when you put caffeine in your body, it shoves the adenosine away and instead goes and binds itself to the adenosine receptors. And because caffeine, a stimulant, is now bound to these brain receptors, the signal your brain is getting isn't "I'm tired", it's "I'm wired, let's go". Well, here's the bummer. Just because adenosine isn't getting to the brain doesn't mean it isn't being produced. In fact, it's still continuously building up in your body. And it's just waiting there, waiting for the effects of that last cup of coffee to start wearing off before it hits you with full force. And you experience that famous caffeine crash, the one that leaves you more tired, irritable, and grumpy than ever. That's why a lot of experts refer to the energy you get from caffeine as borrowed energy or false energy. Oh, by the way, adenosine is also responsible for maintaining a steady heart rate and blood flow. That's why when caffeine pushes out adenosine, we experience that high heart rate, jitters, and sometimes even anxiety. And our solution to all of this, many a times, is to have a second cup of coffee or tea. Which brings me to my next point: amount of caffeine. Remember I told you that tea, coffee, colas, cocoa all contain caffeine, just in different amounts. Well, here's a chart of caffeine content in all of these foods. As you'll notice and understand now, the higher the caffeine content, the stronger the crash. Basically, the more energy you get from coffee or tea, the worse the effect after that high dies out, since there's a higher amount of adenosine waiting to take over. Now, India's favorite drink, tea, has varying levels of caffeine depending on the type of tea. White teas are typically lower in caffeine at 13 mg per cup, and black teas are at a medium level of about 40 to 80 mg depending on the blend, that is Assam, Darjeeling, etc. But even though teas gram for gram have more caffeine than coffee, we only use a handful of tea leaves, while for coffee we use a lot more ground beans. Hence, a typical cup of coffee contains about 60 to 120 mg of caffeine, depending on how many espresso shots you poured into it. One cup of instant coffee contains 60 to 80 mg of caffeine. Of course, these are broad figures and they vary by bean type and the brew method and even whether coffee is brewed hot or cold. But you get the range. Now, the FDA states that anywhere up to 400 mg of caffeine a day is safe for most humans. But most humans is a very vague term, and the best way to tell if you are over consuming caffeine is to listen to your body. Jitters, insomnia, anxiousness, headaches or nausea after consuming caffeine? Chances are you've maxed out. Ideally, 200 to 250 mg of caffeine per day is where one should draw the line, just to be safe. Of course, even then, the inevitable crash will still occur, but it will be manageable at these levels, especially if you smartly manage your time of consumption. Yes, being smart about when you load up on caffeine can help you maximize the upside and manage the downsides quite effectively. All you need to do is understand how caffeine gets absorbed in the body. You see, caffeine consumed in the form of tea and coffee gets absorbed into your system via the GI tract, and it's in its highest concentration 30 to 60 minutes after consumption. So first up, it's about 30 minutes after you've had your coffee that you experience its full effect. So if you want to be wired for performance at the gym or for that meeting, time your coffee accordingly. Secondly, caffeine is a diuretic, which means it makes you pee more and leaves you dehydrated. And in the morning, you as it is wake up dehydrated because hey, you haven't had any water for over 8 hours. So if you can, drink a liter of water before consuming caffeine, or at least drink a cup, whatever you can manage, it'll help a lot. Third, caffeine has a half-life of about 5 to 6 hours in the human body. What that means is that 50% of the caffeine you consumed is still available in your body 6 hours later. So if you consumed 1 cup of coffee with say 100 mg of caffeine at 8 am, 50 mg of that caffeine is still in your system at 1:30 pm and 25 mg of it is still in your system at 7 in the evening. Which is why it's best to consume coffee before 1 pm and tea before 4 pm since it's lighter on the caffeine content. Drink a whole cup of coffee at 5 pm and at 10 when you're planning to go to bed, you still have over 50 mg of caffeine in your system. No wonder you can't sleep. And for those people who can fall asleep after consuming copious amounts of caffeine, maybe that's because you're exhausted, but tell me, do you get good quality sleep or do you keep waking up? And for anyone who experiences digestive irritability or gas after consuming caffeine, try eating a little something before you consume your coffee or tea. It'll do wonders to your gut health. And that's it. Those are my tips to managing your caffeine intake so that you get the best of it, not the worst. To summarize, 1. Caffeine isn't a magic drink. It's a stimulant and it tricks your brain into thinking you aren't tired when you are. 2. Once the effects of it wear off, you're left even more tired. That is, you have a caffeine crash. And the more you consume, the harder the crash is. So monitor your consumption. 200 to 250 mg is more than enough for most of us. 3. If you're an anxious person, switching from coffee to a lower caffeine content beverage like white tea is ideal, as it won't affect your pulse and heart rate as much. And 4. Coffee has a half-life of 5 to 6 hours. So have your last cup before lunch, any later, and you're putting your chances of sleep to rest. Before I sign off, allow me to accept that I too am addicted to coffee. I used to need my 3 cups every day, but researching for this topic made me realize I should cut it down to 2. I'm trying. If you are too, Do tell me in comments how it's going for you. I'd love to know. Oh, and don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss any episode of the Whole Truth Academy. Happy procaffeinating. Ciao for now.